the Earth with an overview from far away. Some of them came back and became artists. Some were poets, writers. He founded the Institute to study consciousness. But this is so good in this day. So one of his sayings, he would say, you develop an instant global consciousness, a people orientation, an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world, and a compulsion to do something about it. From out there on the moon, international politics looks so petty. You want to grab a politician by the scruff of the neck, drag him a quarter of a million miles away and say, look at that, you son of a bitch. And he got it in perspective, you know, and that was my guy, and he was just a wonderful, going into, you actually get reborn, you go into the Day of the Dead, you know, so it was always testing ourselves in the field of consciousness, you know, and the staff, as I said, we were guinea pigs, and they would have chocolate. Chocolate was prayed over monks, and chocolate that is not. But we would know what was, and of course we would eat the chocolate, you know, and I go, I don't feel any different. Or we'd have a woman that came in, I'll never forget her either. She was a breatharian. You know what a breatharian is? Okay, she lives on air. Of course, I kind of was always the grounding factor at ions because you never knew what was there. And then some of our staff were flying around in astral thing, you know, I mean, you know, and yet we were scientists. But so I was there, I think, to ground them into the realities of life. And so I said to Edgar and the presidents, I go, you gotta be kidding me. You know, come on. Well, sure enough, somewhere down the line, we found out, of course, she didn't just live in breath. You know, you have to eat, you have to drink water. So, you know, you have to be wise in these things. And we were very, you know, they would bring me in, okay, Rose, what do you think? You know, because the other thing is we'd have people, young people as well, which we loved because we had a worldview course for young people, which you would be interested in. I don't know if it's still going, where they take a look at the world, you know, in a different way, and we would have programs so that I can talk to you more about that. It was my gift, a gift to me. I had never heard of Noetic Sciences, so back to, you know, I'm a Big Sur person, I'm in town now, but I had been in real estate and insurance, you know, prior to that. You know, remember the MLS book? I don't know, I used to be the one that did the input for a lot of that down in Marin County. So my kids were off to the Marines, and I'm in Sausalito. I'm thinking, why am I staying here? I had got divorced. So I came down to Big Sur, to my house there for 3 or 4 years, and then took a 1-year study at Esalen. So at the end of that was towards the end of the 4 years, Michael Murphy, who owns Esalen, I'm sitting there at lunch, and he says, oh, I hear you're going back to Sausalito. I said, yeah. I am, you know, the kids are coming back. And so I said, but you know what, I'm not going back into real estate or insurance. You know, it's not where I want to be. And he's the one that said, well, I have a place for you, Rose. When you get into Sausalito, look up the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I found my tribe, and 27 years later, you know, it's, as I say, a gift. So that's what I have to tell you about that. Go online, check them out. They're still around. And he was just an exceptional human being, as all of them were. You know, they were, 9, 10 men went to the moon, and that was it. I don't think any of them left anymore that walked on the moon. Anyway, it continues. I did ask him, I'll leave you with this. I always would ask him, are we ever going to go back to the moon, Edgar? And he would say very clearly, not until we go back as one people. Not American astronauts, not Russian cosmonauts, but as one people.
Wow.
Yeah, so there. Any questions?
That was wonderful. I'd just like to ask you if you can pick out 1 or 2 things that he did that really advanced the peace in the world. Obviously, we're in a tumultuous time.
Yeah.
The world's not under the control of any one person.
Yeah.
But what would you say were some of his?
Well, he was on a lot of committees at the White House and that with peace, but also UFOs. But we had, right after the wars in Croatia, we aligned ourselves with a peace organization up in Sonoma County, and we went to Croatia and had 2 conferences, peace conferences, where we brought together young people from Croatia and Serbia. And they were just kids, they were just young people, and tried to work, just start at that level, and maybe you'll learn to live together. He was determined to bring peace to that country. That was one, and that was the most impressive for me, I think. And then we had a woman, Judy, I forget her name. Within the Institute, we also had a program called the Temple Award for Creative Altruism. He was very interested in acknowledging people, not necessarily the big guys like Red Cross or something, but that person that sees a need in their community and does something about it. And it could be something very small. And so that was one of my programs. I loved it because these were just ordinary people who saw something and did something about it. One of the ladies was, she would go to an island in the Adriatic Sea, and she would bring children of war there to just be kids. And these would be little kids, hoping that she would just instill in them peace between them, because they're just kids. Children of war can't go to camp. They're living in traumatic things. So she would bring people, and she did, and that was the year she won that award, because another year we had a Native American man. My studies as an anthropologist was always with the Hopi Indians and the Maasai in Africa. Those were my kind of bonding people. And this gentleman was a Chippewa Cree, and he was from Montana. And his nomination came in, went on my desk, and I said, I can't touch it because I want this man to win. So I gave it to my assistant to process. Sure enough, he won. His name was Pat Kennedy. And we were having the conference. We would present them with $25,000 and at our conference, annual conference. And we were in Palm Springs that year at this very beautiful, fancy La Quinta Resort and Spa. And Pat and I had talked and this and that, and he didn't want to take the money. He said to me, no, he's a shaman. And what he did was teach white Indian ways to white men. And he would help with alcoholism and drugs in Montana. But he didn't want the money because he said, I'm not supposed to take money, my ancestors. So he got really sick, actually. But anyway, he did take the money, and we presented it to him, and he and Edgar spent hours together talking. It was like a natural, it was a beautiful thing to see. And he gave us, and he told me, Pat, he said, Rose, I asked him, I said, Pat, why, if you're looked down upon doing this good stuff, but you're looked down with your people, why do you do it? And he looked at me and he said, we all have red blood. We're all one people. And that was always Edgar's, we are one people. We've got to bring ourselves together, and we definitely need to do it today. It's still happening. So all of those things he taught me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Quick question. Mr. Mitchell, Astronaut Mitchell?
Captain.
Captain.
Yeah.
Captain.
He was captain.
I figured there's got to be a
Ed.
title there someplace.
No, he went by Ed.
Ed. So he had this event that happened to him up in space looking at, and so it sounds like he embarked on another adventure, an adventure into the mind and that experience, and what it meant. So do you have any sense of, through all of the efforts that he did in his explorations through Noetic Sciences or whatnot, did he come to any conclusions at the end of that searching?
Yeah, I think he died still searching. I think his conclusions were that we're all connected, and we need to realize what we have in common more so than we don't. And I think that was the basis of, very simple. I mean, we know as humans, complicated, of course, as we know. So that's what I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Two questions. First, do you remember him ever mentioning when one of the astronauts came down from the lunar module to the ground and said, "Good luck, Mr. Bernstein"? Do you remember that? It's your story.
No, I've heard that,
And
but I don't know who it was.
And when the reporters asked him, what did you mean by that? He said, well, when I was little and I was playing sandlot baseball, somebody hit a ball over into the Bernstein's backyard. And when we went over the fence to get the ball, we heard in the back bedroom Mrs. Bernstein saying, "Sex? You want sex? You'll get sex when man walks on the moon."
No, when the kid next door
Oh, his-
lands on the
Yeah.
Oh,
walks
okay.
on the
Oh,
moon.
that's it,
That was
yes,
the thing.
yes.
And it was
Okay,
when
yes,
the
I
kid
did.
next door walked on the moon. That's when he
you'll get
said,
sex.
Okay.
Okay.
"Yeah."
So my other question is did you ever experiment with drugs, with different kinds of?
Well, back in the day, they did. In the early days, the first president, he was the founder, and we had, I worked with 3 or 4 of the presidents. The first president was Willis Harman. He was an engineer out of Stanford. And he developed the World Business Academy, if any of you back in the day. And so he and I'm sure Edgar was around there too, would go to Esalen with Timothy Leary and a lot of them. Now, it was all under science. It was all controlled, supposedly, but there was a lot of that. And, you know, today microdosing is well known under, you know,
Bernie Madoff.
Berkeley's doing, oh yeah, but Berkeley is doing big studies for clinics that are actually, you know, appropriate
Yeah.
doctor and nurse run clinics in microdosing. So yeah, they did a lot of that. The interesting thing about being a staff member, and I would take care of the board. That was part of, as executive director to the president, the board was my job too. Well, every year they would have an experiential. I have walked on firestones. I have gone into this tube that you're skydiving. And you know, they would always, and they would bond. They were very close, and you would never know half of the board members. I'll tell you one, because he gave us $3 million to buy the land, part of the land. That land was $8 million. George Zimmer, Men's Warehouse. Do you remember him?
You're gonna like the way you look.
He's got a lot, yeah. He is still
Guaranteed.
a member of our board. Deepak Chopra is on the board. I mean, so a lot of different, there's a couple from here, from Carmel. They live in Marin too. They did a lot with, and are still, I'm sure, with ayahuasca, with things. So there was always experimental stuff going on, and drugs was certainly part of that, but not in abusing. Or at least I wasn't there when that occurred.
Did you ever get any response from the Dalai Lama?
He met the Dalai Lama. So did our Marilyn Schlitz was a research director at one time. We never, you know, we had Desmond Tutu at one of our conferences, and I have a picture of me. We were in Bali actually, dancing with Desmond Tutu, and that, besides Edgar, is my favorite picture, and my kids, of course, are. But you know, yeah. But I never, you know, the Dalai Lama.
He and the Dalai Lama wrote a book on happiness.
Yeah.
What it is to be
Yes,
happy.
yeah. So I know that they met them. But, no, it was a unique place, and I kind of felt, and I knew when I went for that first interview, because at the time I started in research there as an anthropologist, and we did a remission bibliography book, this big, thick encyclopedia book I worked on that showed remissions, and it was really for the doctors to see that different, you know, heart, whatever, cancer, the body can go into remission. One of the studies was, how does that happen? What occurs? And so we found, though, that the book was also good for people suffering some of these things, that they would see hope, that they would say, well, you know, look, they have what I have, but they went into remission. So there was a lot of that going on.
Was the Institute of Noetic Sciences involved at all with Ospensky or
With what?
Gurdjieff stuff? Gurdjieff? Or
Gurdjieff, oh.
I think it's Ospensky.
Not that I know
Because
of,
you
but
talked about the hidden schools, and that's a big.
I'm sure, I've got a feeling Edgar knew of him. But he was involved early with Keller? You know, Uri
Uri Geller?
Uri
yeah,
Geller.
that, and also wasn't he the one that bent the spoons?
Yeah.
So very much involved with them. Goff, with the breath, there was a breath network.
Sanford Goff.
Yeah, he was always on our board or part of our people. So he would branch out. He would get people in different fields, and all looking at consciousness, you know, and the study thereof, you know, which is life. You know, it's breath. It's, you know, who we are.
Was artificial intelligence brought forward at all about
Well,
consciousness?
I think that some of our tech scientists were doing that way back. we did a lot with remote viewing, and I'll never forget the day that these 3 military people came. We didn't do a lot with the military back then. We did one test on breast cancer in women with the Department of Army because they wanted us to study breast cancer. So we thought that was good. But this one day when these 3 generals or somebody in uniform, they wanted us to do remote viewing, which we had been studying, but they also wanted us, they found that there are some soldiers in the field that know instinctively that where mines are and not, and they wanted to know, can that be taught? And we didn't take on that program, but it does exist. People are born, many, with exceptional abilities. And I think what society beats it out of a child, if you think of it, they're born knowing. And you know, and we just say, oh, no. If you have born into a family that doesn't say that person or, you know, that child can grow up and do good things if they chose. So there are people with exceptional abilities. We then did studies on, oh God, people that have different mental illnesses, bipolar, but schizophrenia, that type of thing, multiple personality disorders, and that was fascinating. And then we wrote a book, and we had a program on Turner Broadcasting called Healing in the Mind. That was way back before 2000. So we got out there, you know, and we got to enough people, but you know, it was very scientific and very journal. You know, he was always in the Journal of Medicine or scientific journals. He was dedicated to that. You know, and it was, like I say, it was my gift. It was a gift to me. When you find your tribe in life. And it's like, I think that also helped me. I never was one for wealth, or not that I had it, but you know, I always say I have a wealth of spirit. It's not about money. And I don't take myself seriously. I mean, I have beliefs, but I think when you've met people like I've met, it's not about money. Who cares? You know, it's about what does a person do with their life? You know, make a difference, even in a small way. You know, like our Temple Award for Creative Altruism. From that, I didn't finish the Chippewa Cree man, Pat Kennedy. When we gave him the award and he took it, he said, I'm only taking it because what I'm going to do is you're going to come to Montana, Rose, and we're going to have a gathering of shamans from all over the world. And I did. And I had an old truck at that time. Some reason I knew that I had to go by land, not fly. So my research friend, she and I get in my old truck, go to Montana, and we come across this hill onto this property, and all I saw were teepees. And it was like I had went back in time, you know, because my studies have always been very close to Native American people. And he had a teepee. I stayed in this beautiful teepee, which he gave us. About 6 months later, sent it to us, and we had it on the land. Anyway, so I have had many wonderful experiences in life, and I'm very grateful for that.
Okay, so I'm sure
All right.
we have more questions, but we can find you at the visitor center.
You can find me at the visitor center or
Right.
upstairs in the chamber offices.
Yeah, so before you go, we're gonna do a mega
Oh,
whoop.
wait.
Okay? One, 2, 3.
Whoosh.
Thank you.
Megawars.
Thank you.
Thank you.